Okay, so welcome to Vetter, and this is the software we're looking at right now. The top bar here is the module bar, this black bar. Today we're going to go through these modules, a few of them, as well as a workflow to train on the staff, like providers, receptionists, techs, what you mostly see. There was a separate admin training for administrators to set up the account. That would be settings module, inventory, setting that up, and taking a look at reports. But today we'll go over the rest of these and then a workflow of how to check in appointments, work in them, and then check out. And if you have any questions at any time, I just want to let you know, as you learn the software, you can call us for any problems at all or any questions. Call our support team at 844, the number 4 Vetter. That's 844-483-8837.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so up here we have the module bar, and I'm going to first show you some of these other icons to take a look at before I go and highlight the specific modules. This profile right here is where I can change my password, I can log out, and that's a good idea if you're done for the day and to secure your account. And then if you're an hourly employee, you can clock out as well from this little profile, and then edit your profile right there with all your particular settings. This is a really nice shortcut here, this little record plus icon. This is really the best way to shortcut to create different things. Add a new patient file, a new medical note. We call the medical notes, we call the SOAPs medical notes, actually. Those are the consultation notes. So we refer to those as medical notes. New client, new inventory item, and also billing as estimate, invoice payment as well. So that's a nice way to get there. You can get to these little options in different modules and menus, but this is the nice shortcut. This icon we call the quick jump icon.
Okay.
And this little lightning bolt here on the piece of paper. This is sort of the nicest way to get to your last 10 pages that you visited. It's an internet browser you're looking at, so you can use the back button. You can click to a particular link, like through a red hyperlink, like maybe I want to go to that invoice there. Or you can search for things too, but this little thing gets you your breadcrumbs. If you were looking at something earlier, like if I just wanted to jump to this patient file, I would jump there like that very quickly.
Okay, that's nice.
This little bell icon is a task shortcut. So a task is like a to-do. If you want to assign a task to somebody in the clinic, to have them, let's say, call a client back with lab results, you can do that. Now, if you get a little blinking red light there, it's a notification saying that you have a new task or notification that you have to look at. So you can create tasks manually right here.
Okay.
And you can also view all the tasks that you have assigned to you. And it might be permission-based that you can see all the tasks for the clinic as well.
Okay.
Tasks can be created manually, and I can assign that to a person or multiple people or an entire roll of people. And I can put my little information there and the due date. But you can also have these created automatically through an inventory item as an action that the admin sets up. So when you add that item as a medical record, that task might be created automatically as well.
Okay.
The other icon here is this little blue question mark. That's our help desk. It's a quick way to get to support and the knowledge base. So I'm going to open that up, and it'll open up in a new tab right there. And if I sign in, I'll be able to create support tickets. So this is a good way to create written tickets if you don't want to call. You can create support tickets there. And then you also have a knowledge base here with articles, with step-by-step guides. And by the way, we do, if you have new staff or if you want to do a review, we have webinars every Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can find that information there in the knowledge base. Do another training. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So definitely take advantage of that. By the way, the first time, I recommend you have everybody sign up. So click the sign up and have all your staff sign up here on that help desk and use the same email address that you use to log into Vetter so we can approve that registration and send you a link to create a password.
Okay.
And
So
this,
I have one question, if that's
yes,
okay. So each of us, like each staff will have their own profile, and then we would use like our personal email to like log in and out, probably, or if we had a work email, we'd use that kind of thing.
yes, it would be the same email that you use to log into Vetter, but you
Okay.
can also register through the general clinic email as well if you want to
Okay.
have everybody see that.
Okay. Cool. Yep.
The last little shortcut icon here is this little padlock, and this is very valuable. Here we saw earlier that you could log out, but you don't really need to do that until it's maybe the end of the day. Really, when you walk away from your computer or your screen, you want to click this padlock so that way somebody can't do something in your name to secure your account, because we keep
Right.
track of everybody that's doing things. So every time you walk away, it's a good idea to lock the screen and not to share your password. And then if you happen to run over to a different station in the clinic, you can unlock that station just by putting in your staff name and password. The last screen that you were looking at on one device will be the first screen you see on the other device that you unlock. So it's a nice little security measure there. Okay, so those are the little shortcuts. Let's take a look at some of these layout things. So we have the module bar, this black bar, and I'm going to go ahead and jump to the patient module.
Okay.
Now, Vetter is a software as a service or a cloud-based software. So imagine that you have all your files for your patient files with all their medical histories, like in a file cabinet, but you can access those from any device
Mm-hmm.
as long as it's connected to the internet. So we can actually create a new patient right here, as well as this little shortcut here. So you create a new file. But you can search for the patient here as well, that if you already have one, by their name. So it's going to be an exact keyword spelling match. So if I type in a few letters, I get more results, and if it's more letters, it's more refined. So I'm typing by the patient's name right there to get that result. You can also search, though, by some other things like the rabies tag number and the owner's name. So the owner would be a client, the human being, and they have a last name. So I can actually search, if they're in a relationship with that client, I can search by the last name as well.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know, though, if you don't have an exact keyword that you can find that way, you might want to filter this. So I can click on this tab here. It has that little arrow. This little arrow on a tab means I can click it for more options. So I might not be able to find it in the search because they're a deceased or an inactive patient. So this is a patient that no longer comes for a particular reason. This is a deceased patient. So I might need to filter that out and then search with this letter bar here. The first letter of the patient's name will be how you find that.
Okay.
Okay, let's jump to this patient profile, Aston Bond. And you see here that this has the name and an ID number, which is also searchable as well.
Okay.
Now you can do things like you can edit the profile, and you can put in, this is also when you create a new patient, it'll be the same options to put in the breed and the color and all of these things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also upload a picture here. You see a picture that was uploaded through this little option here. Vetter pages have, under the black module bar, this also blue navigation bar with different options, and they're different depending on the module and the page you're looking at. So I just want to highlight a few of those things here. We have the certificates, and that has a little arrow, so I can click that for more options. So this is a really nice way to email paperlessly to the client or to another clinic certificates. I'm going to print this one, and I can see I have an option for rabies certificates and vaccination certificates. I can include or not the reminders, or I can just print the reminders by themselves or email those.
Okay.
So the every provider should save their signature on their profile, so that will populate in the certificate for them. And that will also have the most recent records, and if there was a tag number and a lot and a due date for that record, that will appear there with the provider signature.
Okay.
The other option I like to point out is exporting. So I can click that little tab right there. I can email an entire patient file or just aspects of it, or I can print that as well. So this is really nice if you want to send it to the client or to another clinic. What I will do is I'll find the provider, I'll edit the date. I can go back in time. I can click this to find a month or to a year, go all the way back in time to what I want to, find the date range. And then I can include all like that. And then I can get rid of the things that I don't want. I might get rid of patient notes and communications because that might be sensitive internal information I don't want to share with someone else.
Okay.
Or I can
That's
just
nice.
select specific aspects like just the SOAPs, which are the medical notes,
Yeah.
or just the medical records, etc.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have other options here as well as merging and deleting. Now, by the way, whenever you merge or delete something, these are permission-based functions, but you want to be very careful with who you give those permissions to. The admin is in control of that.
Okay. Like who can
Yeah,
have those options? Okay.
exactly. Once you do those, I could click that. I'll get a prompt here.
Mm,
Once I click that, that's it. That record's gone. So I want to be very careful to follow those
yeah.
prompts and that
Yeah.
permission because we can't undo that.
Right.
Okay, so we have here our patient summary, and we have these nice little hyperlinks. These red, whenever there's a little red link here, it means I can click into that page. So this clicks me to my client owner right there, and I have some other summary information here as well.
Okay.
I have a pop-up note that came up, and that's an optional thing that I created for this particular patient. I did that actually through this little notes tab. The pop-up notes I can do to draw attention to things like allergies, sensitivities, whether or not they bite. And so that pop-up note shows every time I reload the page. I can close it, but I
Right.
can,
But it'll come up as like an alert.
exactly.
Okay.
And so you can create those pop-up notes through this little notes tab right here. I can do a new note, and I can choose profile only or pop-up type right there. And then I can, whatever note I put in here, like let's say they bite, I can make that a high priority if I wanted to list at the top.
Okay.
Now here we have some reminders. Now I call these internal medical record reminder alerts because um, we have a given date and a due date, and this just lets you know when you're looking at the patient file, when you're consulting with the client, what's really due here.
Right. Yeah.
So this was given and due at this time. If there's a red little stop sign there, that's an indicator that it's past due.
Right.
If there's a yellow caution triangle, it means it's due within 1 month. And if it's a green check, it means it's due more than a month out, so it's on track. Now, those reminders are also listed here on this reminders tab. I can view those.
Okay.
And it tells me more detail, like in these line items, like that this is going to be sent to the client through an email 2 weeks before this record is due.
Right.
Now, not all of these reminders go out to the client. Some might just be internal. If it's just internal, it'll say no reminder under the type.
Okay.
So you get more detail from this little tab here. And you can also create the reminders right here manually through a little new reminder there. And you just find the item you're looking for and put in the given or due date. This is optional, but the due date is required.
Okay.
And when you want, how you want to send that, and when you want to send that. These reminders can be created manually on the fly, but they also are typically created automatically through those actions I mentioned before. Just like with tasks, reminders can be sent automatically with an action on the main inventory item. When you add the medical record, it follows those configurations and will create the reminder automatically
Right.
that the admin sets up. Okay. And you see here, there's other tabs here. Let's talk about relationships.
Okay.
Now, a patient can have a relationship, many relationships types, but typically there'll be at least one owner. Again, the owner is the human client.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they have multiple owners in the household like this, you can have more than one, but the little gold star will indicate that that's the primary owner. And so all the invoices for billing will be created in this client's name by default. You
Right.
can edit that on the invoice, and you can even reassign the primary through this gear icon. So by the way, whenever you see these line items on any of these tabs, they'll have a gear icon if you have the permission to see that. And then you'll have other options to edit, delete, and then other options depending on the line item.
Okay.
Okay. So if I want to create a new relationship, I'd click that tab and then that. And then I just choose my relationship type. So I would choose is owned by if I'm trying to relate it to a client.
Right.
And I would then just search for that client in here. Now, if it's a brand new client, I can actually save time. If they're not in my database already as a file, I can click that little green Add Client button and then add the client file and then proceed to create the relationship. So
Okay.
basically
So you
kill
can do
two
it right
birds in
from
one.
there. Yeah.
Exactly. So kill two birds in one stone right there. By the way, there's all kinds of relationships. Referring veterinarians, you might want to do that. Emergency contacts is popular. Maybe they're a client or something of another person. So all types of things that you'll want to look for other than just is owned by.
Okay.
This shows all the tasks that are particular to this patient. And then you can see all the appointments here, and then also documents. You can upload images or other documents as attachments.
Okay.
And you can add things that we call letters. We call it a letter, but they're really any kind of form that you can either create from scratch or pull from a template that the admin has created in settings. I'll go over that a little bit more later. And also we have the history tab. So when I load a page, the default view on a patient file will be this history tab.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is basically everything that that patient has ever had administered or any kind of thing there. So if I click this, it's got an arrow, so I'll have more options. Whenever you see these menus in Better, the top will be filters and the bottom will be new.
Okay.
So I can filter, let's say, just the medical records in a particular category if I just want to see lab records or vaccines.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's great. And then if I just want to see the medical notes, those are the SOAPs. So I can look back at the exam history that way, not my note history. Or if I want to view vitals, I can do all vitals or just the weight history, for example. So this is a good way to filter out different things you're looking for. And at the bottom is a good way to add the new things as well.
Okay.
And I'll go over some of those record creations a little bit later. That's the essential parts of the patient file. Do you have any questions?
No, that's good. I'm good with that.
I think we're okay here.
Very good. Let's take a look at the client module now. I'm going to jump over to that. Again, that's the owners, the human beings. And the distinction between the patient and the client is that all the medical information goes through the patient and all of the billing, invoicing, things like that go through the clients, the humans. So again, you can create the new client file there, or you can just do it right there on that little shortcut. And then here on the search, in this case, you can search by the name or the ID, or also by the client's phone number or their email address.
Okay.
And again, you can filter this out by inactive and search by their last name here.
Perfect.
So I'm going to search by, I'm going to go to James Bond's client profile this way. That was the owner of Aston. And I have my client name and ID number there.
Okay.
Again, we have these different options here as well. Now, on the actual summary, I have my client's contact information, their address. I have their reminder opt-ins. So they choose to want reminders sent to them by email. Then, of course, it has to have a valid email address for that. I also have a pop-up note for James. Now, this is drawing attention to specific things that are not necessarily for the patient. It's more like probably billing information or your interaction with the person.
Okay.
So I actually created those the same way through the little notes tab right here.
Okay, perfect.
The other things that you can do are see the overall account balance. This particular client has a big credit there. And then you have the ability to apply a discount that you create in your inventory as a discount item. You can apply this discount so that way every invoice created in this client's name will have a 10% across the board discount.
Well, that's nice.
Now, if I edit this profile, I can, or if it's a new profile, I can change all these things. Make sure, by the way, when you type in an address that you pick the selected one from this little menu here, that you don't type it custom, but you should start typing it and then select the official one. And then if you have an apartment number, then you can put the apartment after that.
Okay.
So let's just reload that. And let's take a look at some of these things here. So the difference between the client perspective and the patient is that if the client has multiple patients that they own in their household, these tabs here, which are very similar to the patient file tabs, they'll be from the perspective of all of the patients in the household. So the relationships here will be, in this case, James owns multiple patients. So if I'm looking at the reminders tab here, I'm going to be able to see the reminders for all of the relationships that James has.
Right.
And the same would be true for documents and tasks and notes and all these things. We also have, unique to the client profile, the billing tab, because all the billing goes through the client. So this is where you can print an email, an account statement, and then you can also filter out the different types of billing history here specific to this client. So if I go to invoices, I can do all or maybe just the open or locked ones.
Okay.
At the bottom, I can do a new estimate or new invoice if I happen to be there. But again, I can do that from that little shortcut here.
Okay.
The communications tab here is also unique to the client profile. And I can actually, I can send my communication like an email directly there, or I can log a communication. If I happen to call that client and remind them of something or give them their lab results, I can make a record of that. I called them on the phone, and this is what happened, and it was related to this particular patient here. The other cool thing is you can view all the communications. So this shows all the history and also content of those communications. And so if a receipt went out or an export went out, if a reminder went out, that'll be sitting there. And it even tells you if it was successful or not. So maybe that email address was invalid or it just sent. And actually, if it was successful, it's sent, and it even tells you if it was opened.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions that I can go over on this client profile?
I think I'm good. I'm following pretty well so far.
Okay. And just to recap, if I wanted to see all the invoices just for this particular client, I'd go to their file, go to billing, invoices, and I might see all invoices to see every single invoice they ever had.
Right.
Okay. Let's take a look now at the schedule module. And actually, in a way, this is the most important module you might keep open. I'm wondering if I should mute one of these. You can unmute maybe if you want to ask a question there.
Oh.
I'm not sure if there's a sound coming through there. The schedule module is where
Yeah,
you
we can hear you.
Okay. The schedule is where you actually can do most of your workflow. So I'm looking at here, I have two different providers or two different columns where I can create appointments. And they're alphabetically listed. And I can scroll through here and see my appointments in blocks. So there'll be a certain duration of time, and there'll be a color the color was associated with an appointment type. So the admin can create appointment types in the settings. And here I have all my types. And those were associated with a particular color. So when I look at the schedule very quickly, I can see, oh, this is my canine exam I have to do.
Okay.
And you can actually, whenever you have an appointment, you can actually drag it around, drag it to a different provider, or you can extend it, the time, and that kind of thing. When I click on the appointment, I actually have a summary here, and I have a link to the client's file, the patient file. I'll show you another way to link other things. You can at the bottom have more options like edit, cancel, and check-in, which I'll go over in the workflow.
Okay.
But these are nice little links to navigate. So what I actually like to do in my workflow is keep the schedule open at all times. And I might right-click that link to go to the patient file in a new tab. And so I can bounce around from the patient file back to the schedule because this helps me link through everything that's going on today. Or I might link to the invoice, open that in a new tab, and I'll just toggle between my tabs if I want to kind of view different things at the same time. So I do like keeping my schedule open at all times, or even preferably for some, I keep my census open, and I'll show you what that is. So let's just go to the census and take a look at that. That's going to be the appointments in a list form. So not necessarily by provider, but in a chronological order. So I might have multiple appointments in a list. And then I can click this little status here. And from there, I can say, oh, I spoke with them, they're coming, I can confirm that. And change the status like that.
Okay.
I can also check in and that sort of thing from there. So I can click to the patient or the client as well. And then I can also have this little blue book icon, which gives me an entire history of what happened for that appointment, if there were any edits, and by which person, which user made those edits.
Okay, that's nice. That's handy.
Yeah, so if I'm a provider, I actually like to keep the schedule, in the schedule module, I like to keep the census open because I can link to these different things that way. And then just open these in new tabs. That might be preferable. We also have these other things like reminders, if you want to get the reminders detail. If you want to send out postcards, you can filter these out by type and by date, and you can send out, print up your postcards if you do that once a month. So there's other options there. Let me know if you have any questions. You can view tasks there as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go into and transition to what would be a typical daily workflow. I think of it sort of as a 4-step process. 1, creating the appointment. 2, checking in. 3, working within that appointment, estimates and medical notes. And then 4, checking out. So let's take a look at that workflow. And we'll start with step 1, creating the appointment. And to do that, we'll just go on the provider. You'll find the day you're looking for, and you'll find the provider you're looking for, and you'll click on the area of the schedule of the time that you're looking for. So I'm just going to click one time on this little slot right there, and that will take me to the appointment form. So then I would just choose my appointment type. Let's say it's this type of annual exam right here. And then I would put in the complaint. That's the reasons that they're coming for the visit. And then here on the client field, you can just type in the name of the client, just like when you did the other search. So I'll do by last name here, and I'll choose James. And then his pop-up note is showing right there, so it can alert me and help guide the conversation as I'm creating that appointment. If I click in the patient field here, whatever relationships James has owned, those will be automatically available to select. So I can just choose Aston there. And then again, Aston's pop-up note is there too to draw attention, to help guide that and that conversation. And then there's other options here. You can change the time and the duration. The duration is a default duration for that appointment type, but you can edit that there. And then you can edit these other fields here. Now, by the way, if it was a brand new patient and brand new client, I have shortcuts. I can actually click this here. If I begin to type the name and they're not in my database, I can click this little green button and I can add the client as a file to my database right there. And then save it and then go back. It'll proceed to create the appointment. So I'm saving some clicks from not having to go to certain modules that way. And the same is true if I want, right, if they don't have that patient, it's a brand new patient, I can click add patient there and save that file without having to jump to that module to do that. So a brand new patient, I can create the file, create the relationship, and create the appointment all at the same time.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to choose them and I'm going to click next here. The second piece of this when creating an appointment is the chance to confirm the contact information for the client. So I can just make sure they're still at this address, and I can also make sure that they still want these reminder opt-in types here.
Okay,
I can change those. And then I click next one more time for a third screen, and this is my confirmation screen. So I have the ability to send out an appointment confirmation through a certain type, in this case email, with a certain message. And as soon as I save this appointment, that confirmation goes out immediately. This message is created through a default that the admin has set up, but I can also turn that off or edit that.
Okay.
Now the confirmation goes out immediately if there is one as soon as I save that. The reminder will go out to remind as a sort of a second notification if there is a confirmation, and that will have this default message that the admin sets up and the default type and time frame. So in this case, this reminder will go out by email 1 day before the appointment with this message. But of course, I can edit the message and all these little configs here. Any questions?
That's good.
All right. So as soon as I click save, that'll save to my schedule. And that's it. So now I have this blue, which was for that annual exam for that duration. And then I can link to these different files like I mentioned before. There's one little tip that I like to point out when creating an appointment. You can actually have that appointment recurring as well.
Yep.
And what I like to use this for are blocks. So I can actually have a surgery block or a dental block, and I might not know the client, but I know that I want to do dental exams every Monday and Wednesday at a certain time to block my schedule out. So I'll leave the client name and the patient name blank, and then I'll recur that so that it's popping up on my schedule for, let's say, every Tuesday and Thursday all year long, 52 times. So then later, once I have an actual person to put in there, I can go to that block, this generic block, click on it to edit that, and then add my client and patient later for that specific instance.
Oh, that's nice. So you can like hold appointments for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Pre-configure your schedule. Okay, so that really covers step one, how to create the appointment. So now let's check in. So step two is they come for their actual appointment. I can check in from the census or from here, and I'll just click here to get to the summary, and then I'll click the check-in at the bottom. Now, check-in is a really great feature because there's a few things that come out of it. Number one, you can change the status so that way on the census, everybody knows, what's actually occurring for this situation. But really, by using this form, you save so much time and clicks because you can create all these records right here from this check-in form in just a few clicks. So, for example, I can take the weight of the patient right in the lobby, for example, or I can print up one of my letter templates that the admin has created. Like maybe I have a travel sheet, or maybe I'm doing a surgery and I can do a consent form, and I can add that right from my templates. So that'll add to the file and give me the option to print it as well. I can also pre-associate medical notes and bundles with that appointment type, and that will be pre-selected. Or if not, I can just select that if I want. Now, I don't have to do this. I can just not create that. But this will be something that I can do to create my records right from this form. So if I have an annual exam, I might want to use my medical note. And this is pulled from templates that my admin creates. So my SOAP has all these fields on there pre-configured.
Yeah, that's perfect.
The bundle is a package of multiple medical records. So I can add individual medical records that pull from my inventory, but if I add a bundle that my admin has set up from templates, that'll be able to add a bunch of records at once from a package. And so oftentimes I might have a certain process or appointment type or procedure, so that bundle will have those items that are most likely to select there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are optional. And you might not add that now, but you can add it later. Now, the billing is required. This will associate either a new estimate, a new invoice, or a pre-existing open invoice that you can select there at the check-in. I like to go through the estimate process to show the value in that. And so that's really, really nice. So you change the status, you create a bunch of records, and then also by checking in and doing this, all of these files will be linked to each other, so it makes it very easy to navigate through the software by clicking the hyperlinks. And then the data is linked together, so it's very nice for reporting for my admins as well. So definitely take advantage of this process. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, if I click next here, I chose to add a bundle. So it's going to give me an opportunity to edit the bundle. And I can deselect the items that I don't want to throw in that bundle on the estimate. In this case, my bundle template had redundant items to give me flexibility because maybe that patient had a certain age or situation. So I'm just going to take off the ones I don't want there. And then, by the way, we have a dosage calculator. So if there was an item that had concentration information on the inventory item, that would calculate a dose for me with a weight on that particular item. And that would help guide me what quantities to put.
Okay.
In this case, I'm adding this bundle to an estimate. And so if I add it to an estimate, I have two quantity fields. If it were an invoice fund, it would have one, but an estimate has two because you can do a range for flexibility, low to high. Because you might not know the exact number of tablets or something like that. So just as an example, I might say, I want to do 1 to 2 here or 2 to 6 here. And so that will not be, that'll give me flexibility later.
Okay.
Any questions there?
No, that's good.
Okay, save that. And that will load that bar, and then it's checking that appointment. I'm going through it quite slowly, but really this happens in less than 10 seconds even.
Yeah.
I asked it to print a letter from my templates. And so it pulled up this little print preview in a new tab of my anesthesia consent form. And it actually populated all this information right there for me with the content from that letter template that the admin created. And if I do like that, I can just click that little print icon.
Perfect.
And that letter is also saved on the patient file in the documents tab that we saw earlier.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm looking at my schedule. I'm back on my schedule tab. And you'll see here, right here, I have the little green check, which tells me it's checked in. And if I click this, I can see that status. But also, the nice thing here is I have that medical note and the billing link to the estimate as well. So I still have my client, my patient, but because I checked it in and created all those records, that's really nice that it links all there. So that's really why I like to keep my schedule open so I can navigate to these other records and files very easily through new tabs.
Perfect.
And at the bottom, we see undo check-in if we made a mistake and we want to start over. And then later we have different options for checkout. Now, for me, if I have a larger clinic, not necessarily, I might go to the census or keep the census open. And I'll click the checked in where it's checked in here. And I might have rooms set up that my admin sets up in settings. And I'll say, oh, this patient is in this particular exam room or this particular room here with notes. So that way the techs in the back know to walk over there.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Okay. So I also have my links here in the census to these things as well. So I might just use that. So that covers the check-in. Any questions on step 2 there of that workflow?
Good here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Let's take a look at step 3, which is actually working within the appointment. And I might keep my census open, so I might open up my medical note in a new tab. I might even open up my estimate in a new tab. And I could be working within my billing and my medical note simultaneously.
That's nice.
You see here, the medical note just opened in this new tab, and we have the title and the date here associated with that appointment. This is the title of the template. So the admin creates these templates for the SOAPs, which we call medical notes, and all these fields are sitting here to fill out lower down. And it might even have pre-populated text that they put in there, so it makes it easy for me to edit that. And the medical note also has the patient's pop-up note if there is one. And a lot of this summary up here is similar, where the patient summary, you can link to the client. You also have some appointment summary here. And if you created this with the check-in, a link to the billing, and you have those reminders sitting there as well.
Perfect.
Lower down, you have 3 different tabs. You have the medical note tab, which is actually your actual consultation notes for your SOAP. You have your records tab, and you have your documents tab. So what you'll do as a provider, you'll just scroll through here and you'll just enter your notes as they come up. And so when you click in a field, it'll be a blue border that tells you you're clicking in there. And then you can just begin to type. At whatever I type here, you'll see this little changes saved is showing. So I don't have to click save anywhere, which is a really nice feature. Whatever, it saves it in real time. So it gives me the flexibility and makes it a little bit more nimble. If I happen to X out of this or log out by accident, it's saving in real time so I don't lose those notes.
Perfect.
The other cool thing is when I'm in one field here, a provider or technician can be in a different field at a different computer or device, and then that will be grayed out so that there's no data overwrite conflict. But you can have multiple people working in here at the same time.
Oh, that's nice.
So you have collaboration. One other thing that you can do is the admin can create content snippets, templates in the settings module. And so a content snippet is a paragraph of text that is pre-written that is common, so you don't want to have to retype it every time. I can just click the medical note tab, add template content. I can say, where do I want this? What section do I want this in my note? Let's say I want it in the history. And I pull from my content snippets here. Let's say I have this diabetes snippet here. If I click add here, it's going to pop up in the notes here, this huge paragraph that I had pre-typed up in my templates.
Oh, perfect.
So you're saving a lot of time with that. Now we also have the records tab. And we saw earlier on the patient file, we saw the history tab where I could add new records and view different records there. What I recommend is doing your workflow within the medical note where you add records and documents within there so that they're all really nicely organized within the appointment. So all the files are sort of organized and linked together that way. Again, you can add those from the history tab and the documents tab on the patient file if you're doing a standalone, but I recommend that if you do have a medical note, you add them here, organize them by date. So I can add my vitals and bundles and records there and filter them there. And I can also add my attachments, my images, documents, and new letters there as well. Let's now jump over to this estimate that I might be working in side by side. So I just clicked to that link. It was nice linked there. I opened that in a new tab. And so I might simultaneously be looking at the estimate that I created during the check-in. It looks a little bit different than an invoice in that you still have your pop-up note for the client there, but you have some records that aren't actual final records yet. They're kind of in a limbo state. So this patient asked and doesn't actually have these as medical records yet sitting on their file. They're just kind of in a limbo. And so what we'll do during the estimate process, because it gives us flexibility, we'll add items and bundles through this little tab right here. If we want to add more things, and we can play with the quantities, the dosage calculator. What we do is we just find something from our inventory, we start to search for it, and we select something like that. And all these fields can be edited here if you have that permission. You can play with the fees and the pricing and the quantities. And then this is our little dosage here. That was already pre-selected with concentration. We have a weight, so it calculates a dose for us, which will guide our quantity. So you can add items and bundles to your estimate there. The other great thing is you can actually go to these gear icons, and throughout the process of the appointment, as you're doing your consultation, you might click the gear icon to edit that item. So we might have had a range earlier, and we might actually have a final quantity that we might want to add. So earlier I had put a range for this item here. I put 2 to 6, but now during the appointment I know what I want, and I just want to say, oh, I'm just going to put 3. Now, you can also delete items if you made a mistake. In general, we try to avoid deleting because that's gone. Rather, we should decline items because that will keep a record of that process. So if we decline this item, we can choose a reason like cost, age, and we can even put in other notes right here. So I'll just go through my appointment. I'll look through my items. I'll speak with my client. I'll look over my patient. And I'll go through here. I'll edit items and I'll decline items for whatever reason. And then those declined items will actually be sitting on this little decline tab here. So that keeps a record. That's very valuable for legal and liability reasons, or just for my own point of reference if I want to look back at this, why that happened. If I made a mistake, I can just reinsert that right there. And that'll pop back to the items. So I'm just going to go through this appointment. I'm going to decline, edit, add, etc. And then that's how you work with the estimate. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Now, another really nice thing I mentioned earlier, we have a link to the medical note as well because I created them both through Checkin. So linking those files for navigation is really nice through the Checkin. So let's say you're done. You can export this as an email or print, and they can look at it. Or you can pass over a tablet, and you can click approve here. And if you pass them a tablet, they can sign it with their finger. And I'm going to do it a little bit clumsily because I'm not using a tablet, but they can sign that. Or you can just type in their name like that. I'll put James Bond here. And then you just click approve. So this will keep a record of their signature. And then if you happen to, if you can email that to them or print it up for them. And the very last process of the estimate is to convert it. So right now, if I convert this to an invoice, the actual balance of James will change. And these will become actual records. So I'm just going to click convert to invoice up here. I will associate these records with the medical note that I created at Checkin, or I can choose a different one, but I want to use that one. And by default, I'll probably want to create medical records so they'll be sitting in Aston's patient history. If there's an open invoice, it'll convert to that invoice, or I can just choose a new invoice as well, which might be preferable. And I can change my provider. And then I just click convert. Any questions there?
No, that's good.
By the way, if I did have a range, it would ask me to apply the high range or the low range, but I don't have any. So I'm just going to click convert there. A medical note on that tab. And this was an estimate. As it's converting, if I reload that, it's actually now an invoice because it converted.
Okay.
So what happens here, if I look at the records tab, notice here there's now 8 records. Before there were none. But when I converted, I associated that with the medical note. So now they're sitting in a nice organized way here.
Okay.
Now, as I as let's click through this invoice here. This is now an invoice, but it gives me the reference to the estimate that I was using.
Well, that's nice.
So this pop-up note from the client is there. The invoice looks very similar to the estimate. However, we have some more clarity here that there's an actual balance now, and that these items here, that are sitting here now on the items tab are hyperlinkable because they were medical records that are now sitting on Aston's file. So that tells me if they're red links, they're actually medical records sitting there. If it was just a black text, it would just be a charge.
Right.
So I can continue. I can continue to work within my medical note. I can continue to work within my invoice. I would sit here and I could add new items and new bundles to the invoice, and I can even see the declined items as well. Now, when I can take the payment here, I can add credits here and apply credits here, which we can go over later, but I actually would rather, as part of my workflow, collect the payment during the checkout. But just to let you know, you can continue to work within the invoice as well. The invoice itself has the link to the client. This balance here is the overall account balance, which may or may not be different than the invoice balance. So this account had a huge credit on there, but when you add up all the line items here, it just, for this particular invoice, is $200.50. So this is a summary of the accumulation of all of these line items here. It also shows you the status, if it's open, if there was a discount applied. Now, one thing that I like to tell people about is this is open, but let's say you don't take the payment today and they leave without paying. I want to maybe not accidentally add more items to this invoice. If they come back in a month, I might want to add those to a new invoice. So to prevent accidentally adding new items to an old invoice, I would change the status of this to locked right there. And that way it'll stop me from adding new items to it.
Okay.
Now, it's still not paid, so it's still unpaid and there's still a balance, but I can't add more items, so it protects it from that.
Perfect.
Any questions on any of that?
I'm good.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
So the last thing that I want to show you, though, is on the medical note. I didn't really go over the letters specifically. So I'm actually going to go back to my schedule, and I'll reopen the medical note that way. And that's why I like to keep the schedule open, so I can link back to different things. So I'm back in the medical note, and I'm just going to add a letter this way, because we didn't really go through that process. So I'll go to the Documents tab and then New Letter. I can create it from scratch, but probably I'd rather pull it from one of my templates. So I'm going to find, let's say, the discharge letter that I have in my templates. I can select the owner and the recipient and change these fields, and I just click Save. So this is saving to the patient's file in the Documents tab, but it's also saving to the Documents tab within the medical note. And that's really nice because it gives me that link reference there, so I can click right back if I want to. So here's the discharge letter pulled from my templates, and these are all the different content that was there. But if I want to change the specific letter for this file, I'll just click the edit right there. And then I have access to this content right here. So I can type in whatever content I want right here in the body. And then we also see we have a formatting bar, so we can change the boldness, or we can change the size of the font and various alignments and things like that. We can even add tables in here, all kinds of things. The little thing here that is in brackets, that word in brackets, are short codes or variables. I found those were already sitting here on the template when I added it, but if I want to edit those and change those, I can expand these arrows on the left for different information, and I might want to put an electronic signature in there. So I'll find letter information and I'll put a signature field in there. So I can sign this electronically. So I can look for the variables I'm looking for. Now what a variable is if that data was sitting on that file, it will populate in there. So for example, we had a patient breed one sitting there and the patient file had that already saved. So in the patient breed, it populated automatically for me.
Great.
If that data was not there for whatever reason, it would pull up as a dash like this. And I can edit those out. And that's how you edit the letter. I added the little signature field, so I have this little sign letter thing here. Now, I'm going to go back to my medical note. I added that too. I have the option here to duplicate the note, to export the note, and to lock the note. Now, I do want to point out that once you lock it, you can't undo that. It's going to give me a little warning. So you might choose to not lock it until later. But once I do lock it, it's fixed, okay? That I can't go back in there and add it the way I usually see it. I'm going to lock this one just to show you. These are all kind of fixed fields now. But what I can do if I do want to go back, I can click the medical note tab there and add an amendment. So you might want to be careful about locking those and being sure that you're ready to do that, but you can always add an amendment later. Now I'm probably done with this appointment. Do you have any questions now?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm good too.
let's say I'm done with the appointment. The provider in the back can say that the visit is complete. So that way they can send them back up to the front, and then the receptionist knows that.
Then it's all ready to go.
Yeah. I wonder if my internet fell on me for a sec.
Nope.
Let me try my other account real quick. Sorry about that. I'll just pause here for a second. I'm not sure why. Here we go. Good, I'm on. Probably just I had a little traffic there.
All good.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so that'll. I'm probably done with my appointment now, so I'm gonna go back to my schedule and do the last step, which would be checkout. And I'll click that appointment. But if I'm a provider, I'll just click the census there, and I might say, okay, that visit is complete. Change the status without checking out, and that'll just tell the people in the front that they're good to go. They can check them out and collect the payment and all that.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the front, I'm going to go to that census or go to the appointment and click that, and now click checkout. Now, just like check-in was very valuable to save time and not just to change the status, it had a lot of workflow benefits. The checkout is the same too. So that checkout form comes out, which will change the status, but I also am able to collect a payment here and also export documents. So if the client has multiple open invoices or credits, those will appear here automatically. So you can apply those credits and pay all invoices at once. I can always just close these out too and select whatever I want. So whatever invoices I have here will sum up right there in the collected field. But I can edit that as well. I'm just going to pay for this one invoice from today. You'll see that the collected amount will change. If I want, maybe they have less money, or if they're paying more, let's say they're paying 500, a little bit more, I can choose in the change area to apply that as, let's say I'm taking cash as the type, I can do that as cash back. So it works as a little calculator for my cash register right there. Or I can apply that as a credit.
Right.
I'm going to actually just collect the exact amount. I can choose my payment type, like credit card, cash. I'll choose cash there. And then, so I can collect the payment. That saves me time from having to go to the invoice to collect that. I also have this little documents right here, and I can export these as an email, paperless, or print them. So whatever documents I had during the appointment that were relevant, let's say I want to export the medical note, which is the soap, the rabies certificate, I can do that right there. My discharge letter I added at that time, I can do that right there. Now I can do that as an email or a print. I'm going to do print for this example, and it will open up in a new window. When I click checkout, it's actually going to give me an error. Whoops, I forgot to put in the rabies tag number. So I actually added a rabies item, a vaccine, within my bundle, if you recall. And I never added the tag on the record. I never edited that record for the tag number. So the checkout actually catches that, says, hey, you need to add that. So I can add the tag number right there. And now that will check out. Any questions on this value here?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
That looks good.
This is it. So I'm ending the appointment, checkout, that's all done. It's going to load all that up.
Okay.
And you'll see here the print preview. I asked it to print up a rabies certificate, and now I have my tag number, my specific lot and all that, and my provider signature. And I also have my invoice, but it actually serves as a receipt now because I paid it in full. So it's got that paid stamp with the balance. And I had my other thing, like my discharge letter with my pre-populated data and my medical note. And so I would just print that. But that's sitting there now.
Okay.
So if I look back at my schedule now, I can see on the census or on this little icon, that tells me it's checked out. This tells me it's checked out. And then at the bottom, that's it. However, I can always link back to my files very quickly right there. I can still go back to that invoice and see what was happening, and we see it was paid there.
Okay.
And that's that whole workflow right there. I think that we should go over a few more things if you have time. We talked about tasks and how to create those manually and automatically as actions. And but by the way, you can view those tasks from the bell icon and assign those like we showed before. But you can also edit those tasks and complete them right there from the gear icon from that report there.
Okay.
So if I just want, I can comment on this too as well and change these around. And then once I'm done, I can complete it. And then that little bell icon is not blinking anymore.
Perfect.
So there's only one other module that I want to go over, and that's the billing module.
Mm-hmm.
The billing module is a nice way to be able to access all billing records for all clients. So we saw the billing tab on the client profile earlier. That was just that one specific client. But this is like a one-stop shop for everything. So for example, if I see the invoices tab here, This is all the invoices and types of invoices for every single client in chronology right there.
Perfect.
Same is true with estimates and by status. By the way, I can actually search for an invoice estimate or return by the number. So let's say I don't want to go through that list. I can, if I have the invoice number offhand, I can just type in the number and then I get my results and then I can just jump to that invoice that way.
Okay, perfect. And can you, I'm assuming it looks like you can also search by the date or the client name then in that bar?
This is just by number here.
Just by number you can search
Invoice, estimate, and return number.
Okay, but from that bar that you're typing in, that's the only thing that you can search?
Yes, but if you know the client's name,
yeah,
the best thing to do is instead of going to the billing, just jump to the client profile directly and go to the billing tab there.
Okay, perfect.
But the billing module is a great way to manage all of your billing for all clients.
Perfect.
So it's the day-to-day. So I can sort of see like what's going on today, what's happening with my charges today, because it's an order. And so you can actually also take payments here instead of having to go to the invoice. I might just take a payment here as well. What you can do is actually search by client name here. And if I select that and I choose to type, any open invoices will be there to select. Or if they don't have any open invoices, I can create a deposit right there as well. So that creates a credit on the account.
Perfect.
You might find that, so we went through the workflow of an end-to-end workflow, but you might find that you have people that come in without an appointment that are just getting something over the counter, they're buying food or something. What you might want to do is create a client called walk-in or over the counter, and then create an invoice in that name of the client for things like that.
Yeah, we have one called cash client or something like that. So do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of play around in. I have a question about the daily, like you can see all the invoices from that day. There's a way, I'm just wondering for our cash out at the end of the day, we usually print off like a payment from that day so we can make sure everything matches up okay. There's something like that?
Yeah, let's go through some of those reports and cash reconciliations.
Yeah.
So let's say you're just trying to keep track of your cash register that it's in balance. Now, Better will keep track of all the cash in and out when you enter the payments.
Right.
If you take a cash payment, it'll keep track of that. And then it will keep track of the cash that goes out if there was change given or if you gave a refund through cash as well.
Right.
And that'll keep track. I'm going to open up this reports module in a new link. And we have a bunch of reports here. And the ones we're looking at specifically are billing. And so the cash reconciliation report is where you're going to go to see all the money that came in and out, like James paid some cash.
Right.
Okay. Let's say you want to keep track of other things manually though. So that just keeps track of the payments and refunds and change. But if I take money out of my drawer for the deposit at the end of the day that I put in my safe or bank, or if I take money out for petty cash to buy something, or I put more change in my till, I'll want to do a cash reconciliation. So I'll do that from my billing module. And I'll do at the start of the day, I'll do a new reconciliation. And I'll say, I have in this drawer $150, let's say. And I could put even notes in here that I want. And I'll leave my ending balance just 0 for now. And I'll save that. So let's say at the end of the day, I'll go back in here to my billing module. Or anytime I want to edit that. I'll view my reconciliations from the cash tab. I'll find that and I'll click the gear icon to edit that. So let's say it's the end of the day and money came in and out. Let's say I'm saying now that I have 50 in there because I took 100 out to deposit to bank. And I'll save that. So then I'll go back to my reports. Again, this was my cash reconciliation report. So I went to reports. billing, and cash reconciliation. And we'll see here the adjustment that I put in there as well. So I can use that to keep track of everything that went down in my cash register, my drawers. There's other reports that we'll take a look at. I'll jump to that as well. If you want to go through the end of day process, we can go to reports, go to billing. And so what we would do is we might have the end of day, we'll start off with the end of day reconciliation. Let's open that up in a new tab. And we can filter out this report right here by date, but I'm just going to look at today's. And this is the highest level report. So this will show everything that was invoiced by certain categories and all the payments by categories, refunds, etc. So what I'll do is I'll look at all my credit card receipts maybe, or my credit card processor batch, and I'll compare the number to make sure everything was entered in there.
Okay.
And I'll do that with my cash too. And I might use this in conjunction with my cash reconciliation report that we just looked at. So I might be looking at these things side by side. Now, just to start off, if I see something that's a little bit off, the first place I might go to check is my billing dashboard. And I can just look in order here of my invoices or payments to see if something's off, a specific thing. But I might want to drill down in more detail. So what I'll do is in my reports module, in my billing reports, if I want to get more detail, I look at my collections detail by type. And I can look at my billing detail by invoice. So I can actually see all of the payments, all the cash that came in and out, and every single invoice, and even every line item on every invoice, if I really wanted to do a comparison if something's off. If I'm doing like a deep dive forensic accounting.
Right.
Okay, any questions?
Nope.
One last thing about reports is that you can filter these reports by date and other categories, but you can also export them. So not just print, but download. So if I download this, if I save it to my computer, it's going to be a CSV file, which means I can open that in a spreadsheet program like Excel or Google Sheets. And that way I can sort these reports out differently, use formulas, do pivot tables, compare things, do all kinds of things like that if I want to.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's just finish up on the billing module. And I just want to mention that you can create credits here as well. You can also do your write-offs, and you can also do your returns. So you're gonna, if somebody's bringing back something like a bag of food, you'll have to go to the billing module to do that, and you'll go to the returns tab, and then just do a new return. Now, for a return to work, they would have had to have an invoice that they paid for. They would have had to pay for the item. So I'll search for the client, and I'll just create that return. And then this is just sort of an empty shell of a return. Now, just like on an invoice or an estimate, I can add an item from the items tab, and I just have to search for something. So this particular client paid for these things. That's why it's coming up in those results. In fact, today they paid for a rabies thing. You see here that was on the bundle today that they paid for. So I can just select that. Now, if you can't find it, it means that they didn't pay for it. And I put the quantity that they returned, and I can tell the system whether or not to restock that or not, if I want to put that back on my shelf. And I might want to deactivate the medical record on the patient file or not, depending on the situation. And I can put my reason and then just save that. Once I finish my return and adding all my items, I just post that up there. And then I can choose to give money back as a refund or just issue credit for later on the account. Let's see if James has any other questions that you might have on the billing module.
I don't think so. No.
One other area that I do want to walk you through is how to apply a credit. So um, let's say I have a credit on an account. So these are all my credits. This was the amount the credit was credited for, and this is the amount left over. So this credit has been used up. This credit has not been used up. So we want to learn how to apply these credits. So let's take a look at an invoice. I'm going to see if James has an open invoice. And I'm just going to go to James's account, billing, view info, and see if there's any open invoices. So I have one open invoice here for James. And I'll just click it that way. Now, we saw that we wanted to collect the money during checkout ideally, but and the credits will populate there. But let's say they're coming back at some other time and it's not part of the appointment. You'll want to make sure to apply the credit first before you take a payment. So what you'll do is, okay, this invoice has a balance. It's still open. Before I take a payment, I'll want to look at this credits tab. If there's a number here, it means I have something that I can apply. So I'll click that and I'll click view credits. And then I want to click this little green check mark so that this credit here applies to that invoice. So that just settled it up actually. As a matter of fact, there's still a balance left over because it had more than the necessary amount. If it happened to be less, there would still be a balance, and then you can go and collect the payment at that point. But just remember, always look at the credits tab first to see if there's something to apply, view them, and then apply it. You can also undo that, by the way.
Oh, perfect.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that really covers pretty much everything I wanted to go over. Any questions that you can think of, I want to open that up.
Thinking
while soaking everything all in.
Yeah.
I think more questions will rise as we start to really use it. Probably, but I can't really think of anything. Oh, I do have a question actually.
Yeah.
When you are looking, say you're in your client file and you have your list of invoices, I wasn't sure, it didn't look like there's no way to see what items are in that invoice unless, like, you have to click into the invoice in order to see what items are in that invoice, correct?
That is correct. Unless you're looking at like a billing detail report to see every line item for every invoice, you're just looking at a specific client. You'd have to navigate to the client and look at it like this, billing, and then it's just going to give you a list like that.
Yeah.
What I do recommend though is, again, really take advantage of the browser tab. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going to open this up in a new tab, and then I'll be able to see that. And so that way I can just easily click back to that list to see if it's.
And you could open another one too at the same time. Like
yeah, I can open up all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
It's going to get messy, but I just opened up 4 different things.
Right.
The way I did that, by the way, on my keyboard, if you're on a Windows keyboard, you click Control and click. If you're on a Mac, you click Commanding.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'm good, I think.
Okay. So I do want to emphasize again that we're available to help you. I know you're sort of learning it. So if you do have questions with anything to set up or anything that comes up at any time, please reach out to our support team. So again, the phone number is 844, the number 4 better. That's 844-483-8837. And then of course, take advantage of this little help desk, that blue question mark, where you can create written tickets and also check out the KnowledgeBase for articles.
Sorry, I was like in the middle of the phone number. Could you repeat it one more time?
Absolutely. So the easy way to remember it is 844, the number 4, Vetter spelled out, VETTER, but the actual number is 483-8837.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
you too.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.